You've heard how we met, and you've heard about the excitement and the joy and the wedding and the beginning of our life together. But today, we're going to talk about the part that doesn't always get shared. Today, we're going to talk about the drift, the slow, subtle shift where a couple that once felt so united became two. Not because of one big blow-up or not because of a single mistake, but just because life gets really loud. Work demands more. Kids need everything. The schedule got really full. The stress got really heavy. And before we realized it, we were winning at work, but we were losing at home. That's where we found ourselves. Pulled in different directions, doing life side by side, but no longer truly together. In this episode, we're sharing what that season looked like for us, the chaos, the tension, the disconnect, and the moment that we realized something had to change. If you've ever felt distant from the person that you love the most, if you've ever looked up and thought, how did we get here? This conversation is for you. This is part 3 of our marriage story, and it's the one that changed everything. Welcome back to the third phase of our story. We have been opening up season 2 with the story of us, the David and Carole story of how we met, when we got married, how we fell in love. And we had initially just talked about recording today's episode. And today we were going to talk about some trials and valleys that we walk through. And then David had the idea to record how we actually met each other. Because if you just hear about how someone kind of walked through a valley, you might not understand all the pieces of it, or you might not appreciate all the pieces unless you hear how their relationship first got started. So it was David's idea to record how we met, and I had not even considered that. So it was really fun to record that, and I'm really glad we did. It was fun.
Hello, everyone. And just to be clear, none of this was my idea.
It was.
This has all been Carole's idea from the very start.
That's not true.
She's got me here shackled to the chair.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
So when we were talking about recording this, you said, I think we need to tell them our story first. Did you not say that?
I have no recollection of that.
You totally said that. Your dad says that. He says that when he's guilty of something. I have no recollection, Senator. Okay. So today we wanted to talk about where we were in our story after we got married. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Dave. Where were we? We got married, and then what?
Right. Well, just before that, I wanted to share that, one that God speaks to us many different ways.
Yeah.
And of course, the primary way is through His Word. And another way is through circumstances in our life. He can teach us things and show us things. And another way is through friends and through other people's experiences. And it could be that things that we've learned and some of the experiences that we've had can help someone, be a blessing, encourage you. And so that's why we're sharing our story. Also, as we talk about a relationship, you can't talk about marriage without going and just referencing Mark chapter 10 and verses 6 through 9. And the Bible says there, but from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and cleave unto his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. So then they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. And so God's goal from the very beginning was for a man and woman to come together and become one. And that starts before marriage, of course, but on the marriage day is when it's supposed to actually happen. And, Carole and I were both madly in love with each other, and we still are. And it's been said that usually at the 3-year mark or the 7-year mark, you go through some trouble, a valley. For us, it was year 9, and there was a whole lot going on. Now, we had a wonderful marriage. We have one. And we had, up to that point, we waited several years to have children. We got to go on a cruise to the Mediterranean. I was serving the Lord as in a Christian school. Carole was doing a great job at her job, killing it there. What are some other things that we had done up to that point?
Yeah, so from last week's episode until today's episode in our life, we had bought a starter home, kind of moved out of that starter home. We had Jackson. We had our firstborn son, Jackson. We waited 5 years before we had kids. Then we had Jackson. And then after Jackson, I think there was 3 years total between Jackson and Eli. And I feel like I was pregnant with Eli is kind of when that snowball started to kind of unravel a little bit. And it was just life circumstances. We had a lot of financial things that year that were unexpected. We had plumbing issues that happened. Like, we thought everything was fine with the plumbing, and then everything that hadn't been replaced before we moved in broke around that same time, between when I was about, I think, maybe 6 to 7 months pregnant until Eli was born. We had like $10,000 in plumbing problems. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. And it wasn't just that. Carol was expecting our second child. COVID was.
Yes, COVID was happening.
I was trying to work from home. Carol was trying to work from home before that setup. We were trying to teach our kids.
Yeah.
Carol's parents were moving down, and we were trying to literally prepare raw land and put a house there.
Yeah.
And so I feel like sometimes in life, there's all these little hooks in you. Mm-hmm. And it could be like the government has a little bit of a hook, and the mortgage company has a hook, and family has a hook, and friends have a hook, and church has a hook, and your wife or spouse has a hook. And in life, it's like there's a little tug here and a tug there. And you can always adjust and change position. And then there's just those sometimes where it's like every hook gets yanked at the same exact time. And then there's hooks you didn't even realize existed, like COVID. And that hit us too. It just changed everything. And during that time, Carol and I talk about it. We call it the drift. And we were one, and I know that. But without even realizing it, we began to drift far, far away. My mistake was believing that our tension all was because of our circumstances. And I've told Carol several times, because she was stressed, I was stressed, and I figured she was stressed at the circumstances in the same way that I was stressed at the circumstances. I didn't realize that she was also very frustrated with me. And I kept on telling myself and telling her, look, when we pay this off, when we get everyone moved in, like everything will get better. And like all these problems that we're facing right now, was financial was one of them, but it was several more. Yeah. As soon as we get everything done, we'll be better. And I was really missing the point that we had drifted. We were one, and we started becoming two. Yeah. And those two were drifting further and further apart. And it was really difficult.
It was difficult. I think one way that it was hard to even know that we were drifting is that individually we were doing really well on paper. Our jobs were individually going really well. You were succeeding at work. You were always getting sweet notes sent home from students. Yes, first year at a new school. Yes, yeah. So the first part of it was first year at a new school, and then after that, as we went on, you're just a really good teacher, and so students loved you, parents loved you, the administration loved you. You were doing great. And in my job, I forget exactly what was going on then, but we had just adapted from COVID. We were still trying to get projects done and work done. The team was growing. I was doing really well. And so for me, I would succeed at work, and I would hear really good, kind compliments at work, like, man, Carole, you're doing a great job leading your team, or we really appreciate you. Or someone would say, you are the best boss I've ever had, or you're the best leader I've ever had, or I appreciate how much you've helped me grow in my career. And then I would walk in the door, and it was complete and total chaos.
But I told Carol she was the best wife I ever had.
But that was not helpful. That was not helpful. But I remember walking in the door thinking, man, I am terrible at this, because it felt like laundry was forever behind. The house was forever behind with a 3-year-old and a newborn. And as Eli got older, it didn't necessarily get easier, and he was a very, very clingy baby. He wanted to be with me all the time. And I felt like I was constantly missing the mark at home. And so if I needed to stay at work late, or I needed to get something done late, I would, because I felt like at least I'm doing a good job here. Like, at least when I'm at work, I know what I'm doing. I was confident with what I was doing at work. And I felt like at least when I'm here, I'm doing a good job. And when I would go home, it just felt like, David, you always talk about wanting to make me laugh all the time. And during that time, one of the quickest tells to know that we were not okay to me was that we weren't laughing together. We had stopped laughing.
And
And
that's tough because I'm very, very funny.
yeah, you are very funny, and you love telling jokes. You love making me laugh. You love being silly. And during that time, there was so much tension, and it was tension about life, tension about me feeling appreciated at work, but not feeling appreciated at home. And you're right, that drift just got deeper and deeper to where we stopped. Before, if there was a normal problem and something had happened or someone said something, we would talk about it pretty quickly, but we stopped talking about it because it felt like there was no one conversation that was going to fix it all. And so we just stopped talking about it. We just kind of lived in the awkward, and we lived in the tension. And the longer we lived with it, the harder it became, because it wasn't just one thing. It was a little bit of finances, a little bit of this, a little bit of kids in a tough age. We were also, something else we forgot to mention, we were also changing churches around that time. So that was all happening at the same time. And that was a really hard season. We weren't spiritually grounded anywhere. We didn't know who to talk to about it. It was hard.
And so one of the ways this manifested itself was by speaking in code.
Yeah. So speaking in code, David might say one thing and then I would hear something different. And when I would hear something different, I didn't always tell him what I heard until later. And so one of the things he would say, that he was trying to be reassuring in what he said. And he would say, it's not like we're going to get divorced. And he was trying to say, what were you trying to say, babe, with that statement?
Well, what I said more often than that was, I told you, if you ever leave, I'm going with you.
Yeah.
And I think I only said that, what you said, once or twice.
Yeah, you didn't say it often, but it just stuck with me.
Because Carole was mentioning all these pressures, and I would talk about the circumstances. And I was trying to say that I'm committed to this relationship. But Carole heard.
Yeah, so when you would say that, I would hear that you didn't want to work on it. And it wasn't bad enough for you to actually start working on our marriage. It was just something we were going to suffer through together. And I didn't want to suffer through it. I didn't want to do that.
I think Carole felt like we were both good Baptist Christians, and that, we would never leave each other because we weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
And so we don't have to worry about working on our marriage because we neither.
Well, that's what I thought you thought. Yeah.
Right. She thought that's where my mind was. That's not what I was thinking. But that's kind of speaking.
Yeah.
Code. And Carole also had an expectation where if you were sad.
Yeah, that's a great point. I had this expectation, and I don't know if anyone, Annie F. Downs says some things are caught and some things are taught. And I don't think this was ever taught to me. It was something that I picked up. I don't think anyone actually explicitly said it, but I always thought that it was like your job, Dave, to pick me up if I'm down. I thought it was your job. If I'm lacking spiritually, then it's your job to fix that. If there's anything that I am having a bad day at work, it's your job to pick me up. If I'm sad, you make me happy. And there was a lot of times when you did do that, but I relied on you to do things that spiritually, they weren't only not your responsibility, it was an unfair expectation to expect you to know what I was thinking and to expect you to kind of pick me up when I was down. Spiritually, I was pretty dry. And that wasn't really fair for me to expect you to pick me up during that time. That was just not a fair expectation.
A difficult thing for me at this time was knowing she was upset. It felt like no matter what I did, she was still frustrated.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and let me be perfectly honest, I would, here's the thing. I was home more than Carole was. I was home a lot. So I would be back at home and I'd have the boys for several hours. I would try to make dinner. And several nights I would make dinner, but then she'd be held up at work and the dinner I would make would go cold. And I could have been more helpful with laundry and dishes like any guy could. But even when I was doing it, even when I did try to help and put my hands in and fix it, it seemed to not make a difference at all.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, why do I even try?
Yeah.
Because she's still frustrated at me no matter what I do. So it was a bit difficult.
And there were times looking back on it, I didn't see it in the moment, but looking back on it, there was a lot of times I would be mad and I didn't even know why I was mad. I was upset at the whole situation. I was upset that we couldn't talk through it. I was upset that we had all this tension and on the outside we were fine, but we had all this tension and things were not right. And the whole thing made me mad. I didn't want to live like this. I didn't want this to be normal. I didn't want to be upset all the time. And then I would get upset with myself for getting upset at something so small and stupid, it felt like. And it felt like any small thing could just kind of tip me over the edge.
And one thing we learned through this process is that, and it was actually alluded to in the book that we're going to reference coming up, that was really helpful for us, was that no two people can do what only God is meant to do for us.
Yeah.
And that is to say, we get married and we feel like we've married the person of our dreams. So everything I lack, physically, spiritually, emotionally, they will fulfill. Now, God intends for us to be one.
Yeah.
But he doesn't intend for another person to fill our heart and fill our soul. That is only something that God can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big mistake for couples to look for a spouse to do what only God can do. And one of the reasons for that is that no two people are really compatible.
Yeah.
You see, the truth, I mean, we all know this. We've changed. I know myself. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And if I know I'm not the same person, then for sure my wife isn't the same person.
Yeah.
So we both, 15 years into this marriage, are completely different people than we were at the beginning of our marriage. And so when we commit to love each other, we think that, the way we are now, the way we feel now will be forever. But we change. We don't realize the change, and these things happen very slowly. But when we commit to marriage, we are committing to love each other through all those stages. And how many times have you heard people who are ending their marriage say, well, we're not compatible anymore.
Yeah.
We're not compatible. Listen, if God puts two people together, then you can commit to one another through all those changes. I heard something long ago. I believe my father-in-law told me. I'm not sure where he got it from, but I thought it was very interesting. And it's that 6 people come to a marriage altar. And that is that there's who the man really is, who he thinks he is, and who the woman thinks he is. Then there's who the woman really is, who she thinks she is, and who he thinks she is. I almost made it through that.
I know.
With a mistake.
It's a tongue twister.
I got to the very end. But the honest truth is, those 6 people come to a marriage altar.
Yeah.
And after about 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months, it could be a year, but pretty soon 4 of those people disappear.
Yeah.
And you're only left with those 2 people. And everyone thinks they're not the person I married. They've changed. And that's true. We change.
Yeah.
You change. Everyone changes. But you are supposed to commit in godly matrimony to love love your spouse through all their changes and through all your changes. And it can be done. The triangle's very famous, where you've got God in the middle and a husband and wife on one side. And as they grow more spiritual and as they love the Lord more, that love will draw them close together.
Yeah.
And I think there's a good bit of truth to that we can love. As we change, we can be more like Christ and love each other more. But then it got really bad. And then we talk about the drift.
Yeah.
But then we have to turn this around and bring it together. I'm going to let Carole talk about the turn.
There was a couple things that started the process of turning everything around for us. And the whole season that we went through, that hardest season of our marriage, probably about a year, maybe a year and a half. Would you say about, Dave?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I think about a year and a half. So about that time, one Sunday morning woke up and the boys were not feeling well. And at the time, I was in the praise team at our church. And so David offered to stay home with the kids so I could go to church and sing in the praise team. And because he wasn't there, I didn't go to the normal class that I went to for our Connect groups. I went to a couples class with a friend, and she invited me to go with her and sit with her since David wasn't there. So I sat in the class, and that class, Dave and Ann Wilson, they were going through a Bible study. It's called Vertical Marriage by Dave and Ann Wilson. And I sat and I listened, and they talked about being married for 10 years. And they talked about the struggle in their marriage at 10 years. And everything Ann Wilson was saying, I sat there and I thought, no one in this room knows. They were all of our friends sitting around, but no one knew that we were struggling that much. And I thought, man, I have got to look this up when I get home because this is what I needed. I needed something to give me a nugget of what to do. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know what to do to turn it around. I felt really stuck. We didn't know who to talk to. We just felt really, really stuck. And so when I got home, I started looking up on YouTube. There was a 3-part series by David and Wilson called Vertical Marriage. So I started listening to it. And right around that same time, I don't know the sequence of how it all happened, but right around that time, I went to do a Facebook Marketplace exchange, and I went to Weigel's. And I was taking some of the baby shoes that Eli had never fit into. I was taking them to sell them to another family. And as I waited, I saw a dad and a little boy in a truck. And they were waiting. And David, you would say I'm a little nosy. I would just call it inquisitive.
Okay, just so the audience knows, I take Caroline on dates, and she doesn't pay any attention to me.
That's not true.
Her favorite habit is to listen to everyone around us.
It's a hobby.
And I notice her staring into outer space. And I just wait a few minutes and I say, okay, honey, tell me what's going on. Like, you wouldn't believe they're talking about their hair color, that they made this trip, but they don't like it. And you wouldn't believe. Yeah, I've learned how to just mumble.
It is an art.
Just because, people are listening.
It is an art. Right. Anyway, so I like to people watch and observe as things happen around me. I think it's a great, fascinating hobby to people watch.
Yes, honey, we're all blessed by it.
Anyway, okay, so I was watching this dad and this young boy in this truck, and they were obviously waiting on somebody. They were parked right beside me over on the side. And a few minutes later, a mom pulled up in a minivan, and it was obvious that it was going to be a kid drop-off situation. And David didn't know how bad things were for me and how badly I was dealing with things. And although we had not ever filed divorce papers or separation papers, we were never separated, in my mind, that thought of, man, this would be so much easier if I could just do things the way I want to do things. I could financially support myself. I could do all these things. But mentally, I thought about it. I didn't do anything with the thought, but I thought about it. And I thought, I think I could do it. I think I could do this by myself. And then as I sat in that Weigel's parking lot, I saw the dad get the little boy out, and he tried to put him in the mom's van, and the boy started crying. And it always makes me emotional to talk about it because the mom was trying to get the little boy in the van, and he just started screaming, and he wouldn't get in the van. He wouldn't get in the van. And the dad and the mom, they talked. And then the mom kind of just shrugged her shoulders. She was like, it's okay. We'll do it another time. And the dad put the boy back in the truck. And the boy got in the truck with the dad, and they buckled back in, and the mom drove away without the little boy. And I thought, man, I have no chance because David is the fun parent. Like David, they would go with David all day long. And Eli's my little cuddle buddy, but David is the fun one. He is the more expressive, live out loud, fun parent.
It's the only strength I have.
That's not true. That's not true. But I sat there and I thought, okay, Carole, if you don't want this to be you, if you do not want to do exchanges in the Weigel's parking lot with your kids, you need to do something. And you need to do something right now. And I think when you get in that stage of a marriage and your family and everything else, that at work I was winning, everywhere else in life I felt so strong except for here. And it's easy to make excuses like, well, he should lead the way. He should do this. And why isn't he going to do something? And there's a million excuses that we can use for not fixing what is very broken. But in that moment, it was like, look, if you don't do something, this is going to be you. And so I started pulling up that Dave and Ann Wilson YouTube series, and they were about 30 minutes each. I watched all of them. And then I sent them all to David. And in that series, they talk about a really hard season in their marriage that they went through, about the 10-year mark. And as they were telling me, or they were sharing in the video about their difficult season, they mentioned a book called The Meaning of Marriage by Tim Keller. And so I asked David if he would read a book with me. And I said, I've been listening to this 3-part marriage series. would you read a book with me called The Meaning of Marriage by Tim Keller? And he said yes. And so I went online and I bought 2 copies, and he started reading it. I started reading it.
Well, hold on a second. I never realized that it was this bad. Once again, I'm thinking that this frustration has to do with the circumstances.
Yeah.
Because I had equal frustration, but I had no idea it was this bad. So one night, Carole asked us to.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. I asked you about rating our marriage.
I gotcha.
I asked you about rating our marriage. I forgot about that. And that was a suggestion of Dave and Ann as well. Dave and Ann Wilson, they suggested that. And I heard that and I thought, I wonder what David would say our rating was.
And so she asked me what to rate our marriage. Now, I knew we weren't great, but I didn't think it was that bad. And I'm like, is this a test? If I go low, will she like slap me? If I go too high? But I knew things weren't great. So I went with a 5. I figured no matter what it is, I'm right down the middle.
Yeah.
And then Carole said.
Yeah, I said 2.
And when she said 2, a bit of a light bulb went off, or maybe it went out. I'm not sure what happened. But then I realized that, she was serious, because a lot of this, like I said, we were not communicating.
Yeah.
Anytime we did communicate.
Yeah, it was an argument.
It was it was really in code. Now listen, we were never yelling. We were never throwing things.
No.
This was all on the inside.
Yeah.
But then again, you don't need enough time to confront your feelings or emotions, because we were too stinking busy.
Yeah.
And that, sometimes seasons happen like that, but they can't stay that way, because the busyness didn't even enable us to open up and communicate. We weren't going on dates.
Yeah.
We couldn't.
Yeah.
And it was very, very difficult. And so after reading the marriage, Carole bought she bought the book. Mm-hmm. And honestly, the book sat there for 3 weeks. Like I said, we were very busy. But after she asked us to rate our marriage, and she said 2, it's like, all right, let's read the book. And honestly, I think for guys, that's one of the biggest issues that we face, because the hardest thing for a guy to do is to admit that there's a problem in the marriage. At least from my perspective. Yeah. We just want it to be fine. We don't want to worry about anything. And the biggest issue is realizing there's a problem. The second issue is realizing that problem is going to take work to fix, because we want to fix things in 5 minutes. If there's a broken chair or a broken car, or we have to put a Band-Aid on our kid or whatever, we're going to do it fast, efficient, quick. And so we expect to fix our marriage in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's just not true. That's not what happens.
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest hurdle. Once I got over that hump and realized, you know what, we need to work on this.
Mm-hmm.
And for Carole, this is my perception, but immediately the healing began to be.
Yeah.
The healing, I almost said began to begin.
Yeah.
It didn't. Because Carole realized then that we were on the same page.
Yeah.
And I took this problem seriously, because me being at a 5 and her at a 2, we weren't at the same page.
Right.
But then when I just started to read the book, when Carole saw me reading the book, it really, just that act already started to bring us closer together. But you had one big takeaway from that book, babe. What was that?
Yeah, there was a couple of things that were really big takeaways for me. One of the things you mentioned earlier about changing, because I had changed over time. You had changed over time. So that was a big one for me. But something else was also, it brought out how I was talking to you. A lot of times what I would say was sarcastic, or it was really condescending, and it just wasn't kind. I had never really thought about loving David, because he's also God's son. He is a child of God. He is made in the image of God. I looked at David and thought he doesn't either deserve my kindness because he's done this or done that, or I looked at my kindness as something he needed to earn. And I don't, that's absolutely not biblical. Hey friends, real quick before we jump back into the episode, if this conversation around faith and work and family resonates with you, I would love to stay connected with you outside of the podcast. You could follow me on LinkedIn, where I share practical, real-life encouragement for navigating leadership, work, and home without feeling like they're competing with each other. If you want something that's short and doable, I also send out a once-a-month newsletter called Faith at Work and Home. It's a quick 2-minute practical read with tips to help you connect your family life, your home, and your work, because they really can all fit together. You can also find the link in today's show notes. And when I thought about the tone and the words of how I talk to you, some of the things I would say, and when my heightened frustration of a state, I think that was something immediately I thought, that's not, I am in the wrong when I do that.
See, I noticed those words, and I it's funny because I had that same thought, and I thought, wow, what if I just said back to her what she said to me?
Yeah.
How would she take that? I'm like, well, she wouldn't take it well.
No.
But I didn't know what to say. I love speaking, debating even, but as soon as it gets to anger, I shut down. I don't argue with people that way. We're not yellers.
No, we're not. I think our most serious conversations, we were talking about right at this volume. Like we just don't, we're not yellers. We talk.
And sometimes we talk for a couple hours, but we would never raise our voice.
Right.
I know some people have screaming fits and they let it all out. And, that's them. And look, people do their own thing. For us, it wasn't that way.
Yeah.
When we argue, it's very cerebral. But sometimes those cutting jabs, and we always have to work.
One of the things I said that was really rude, like it was so rude.
I don't remember it.
It was when I told you that I would never hire you. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
That was so rude. I thought about that later. We were talking about something. You said something about helping around the house. You said I could, but I'm just really tired. And I was like, ugh, I was so annoyed because I felt like I had to work and then come home. And you did do stuff around the house. You're very, very good at cooking. You're really, really good in the kitchen.
Right. And the one difference with house cleaning is like if the sink is only half full, why am I going to do the dishes? I'll wait until the sink is completely full.
We have different ideas about that.
And then okay, because that way I only have to do the dishes once, not twice, because then it's worth to go there and do it. So our expectation of the timing of things
was very different.
Was very different.
And to me, I don't want to sit down until all the work is done. And David is much more relaxed. He can relax while the work is not exactly done. And he's okay with that. And that's actually been really good for me to relax, because I would never relax if it wasn't for the balance of David. But I remember saying that, and as soon as I said it, I knew it was uncalled for. I knew it was rude, but I didn't apologize until later. I am not. I am not paying you for this podcast. But I realized that later how rude that was.
Yeah, one thing we have to watch out for as guys when it comes to this idea of working on our marriage. No one ever gets married thinking, man, I hope our marriage is horrible. No one ever gets married thinking we're going to get divorced in 5, 10, 15 years. It always happens, though. Well, think of it this way. When someone has a sports team, they want to be a great sports team. But does anyone get a great sports team without work, without practice, without dedication, without steps and man killers? I'm thinking about my days in high school and 1 year of college sports, for which I am not very proud. But listen, you don't get a championship team by accident.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen without any direction, without being, Carol's favorite word, intentional.
Intentional. I love it.
I'll say it again, intentional.
I love that word.
I know. Every time I say that, she kisses me.
I know. I'm like, babe, yes, intentional. That's what I meant.
So I use intentional as often as I can. But the problem is we want a great marriage at the beginning. We think, people get married and think, we have a great marriage. No, you don't.
Yeah.
It takes work and time. And just like people work so hard to win a championship ring, if you want a championship marriage, it will take a lot more work. And I ask you, what is more important in your life than your marriage?
Yeah.
There's nothing more important than that. So where did we get off the bus thinking that good marriages happen by accident?
Yeah. Good
marriages happen on purpose. And so they always take work. They always take time because we want the end before the beginning.
Yeah. There was a couple things that we did that really helped maintain our marriage. Reading the book was really, really helpful. Talking about it together was helpful. But then just prioritizing time with each other, that was helpful. One of the very first big things that we did to kind of solidify where we were and the conversations we were having is we took a 10-year anniversary trip. We went to Duck, North Carolina, and I would love to go back one day and take the boys back with us. But we walked and we talked and we ate the most amazing seafood and scallops. Oh my, crabs. We had lobster. We had so much great seafood down there. The Outer Banks was so good. But we went to see lighthouses and we just walked and we talked. And it was such a good trip for us to align. We had fun. We went to see movies. I think one time we saw 2 movies in one day, which we've never done in our life. It was so nice. I know we couldn't go to the movies growing up. So as an adult to go to the movies, and it was just fun. We had a good, fun trip together. We asked each other questions all the way there. It was like 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah, there's this little game where you know each other, and there's hundreds of cards.
Yeah.
You just got to read. I felt like we were learning who each other was all over again. I mean, 10 years of marriage, we've bought homes.
We had kids.
Right. We had children.
Yeah.
And it's like we felt like we were just rediscovering who the other person was.
But I think even more than the answers to those questions, it was taking the time to be curious about each other and getting to know each other. And we think about, I love the word intentionality, but I also love the word investment, because we make an investment in our marriage every time we take a trip together. Every time we choose to spend time together, every time we go on a date night, that's an investment in our marriage. And a silly little card game, I think we got it on Amazon for like $20. That was an investment in our marriage. And then taking the time to ask each other questions, to go on that trip together, that was a big investment for us. And then anything else you want to say about that trip?
I think you covered it. And before we wrap this all up and talk about the things that we did since that, I'll share one more point about that consumer covenant relationship.
Yes.
And, sometimes people look at marriage as a consumer relationship. For example, and we've all heard this before, 2 people get married, they're married for X number of years, then all of a sudden one partner thinks, true or not, but they think, you know what? I'm not getting into this marriage. I'm not getting out of this marriage what I'm putting into it. I have a net deficit right now. I'm putting an X amount of time, I'm putting an X amount of dollars, and I'm not getting a good return on my time, on my love, on any of those things. And so we look at it like a consumer and we think, oh, well, since I'm not getting what I deserve out of this, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And we treat it like a consumer. It's like, I have so much money into this car, I put this time into it, but all of a sudden this car isn't servicing my needs, so I'm going to divorce this car and get another one. And I just want you to think of that line of reasoning and compare it to our children. Yeah. We have 2 little rascals. Sometimes I just want to squeeze them to death, in love, of course. But I want you to think about children or your children, if you have any, and think, what if we treated our children, our relationship with our children, the same way we treat our marriage?
Yeah.
That is to say, well, we have this child, and my son is Jackson. He's 9 years old. And what if I sat Jackson down today and I said, Jackson, I have to tell you something. When your mother and I decided to have you, we thought that you would be so emotionally fulfilling for us. But son, we had no idea how expensive you were, how much food you would eat.
Oh, man.
How you keep us up at night.
Yeah.
How you stress us out with your grades, and how expensive your clothes are on, and how many times we have to tell you to be nice to your brother. And so, son, I've got bad news for you. We are not getting out of this relationship what we're putting into it. So we're going to divorce you. Now, our culture's pretty messed up, but I'm pretty sure, unless you're on the lunatic fringe, you'd agree with me that is ridiculous. Good, because when you have those children, it's not a consumer relationship.
Right.
It's a covenant relationship. We had those children. They are our responsibility. We love them no matter what. If we're committed to them, they are the heritage of the Lord. But even a secular person, even a lost person, will understand that you don't get out of a relationship with a child as much as you put into it.
Yeah.
Well, what if we looked at our marriages not like a consumer, but as a covenant relationship? Because a biblical covenant marriage is even stronger than a biblical covenant with your children in that relationship. no matter what, through thick and thin. It doesn't matter. We want the end at the beginning. What we want is to have, we want to have all the blessings of a fully covenantal committed marriage in the beginning.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen at the beginning.
Right.
After years and years of work, love, dedication, dates,
Mm-hmm.
time, communication, that's when you get that gold standard marriage, just the way God intended.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen on accident. And it happens because you're not acting like a consumer.
Right.
You're acting as if this is a covenant relationship. And so Carol and I had a couple of tips and things that we did.
Yeah.
As we came out of that. Once we were back, we were in a very strong place. We're in a very strong place now, thank God. But what are some things that we do to keep this marriage strong?
Yeah, so a few of the things that we did that were really fun is starting to plan date nights for each other. So I would plan a date night for him that I thought he would really enjoy. We love trying new restaurants in town, and so I took him to a new restaurant we hadn't been to. We went axe throwing, and then one time for me, he planned a pottery date night. I loved that date. That was such a fun date. And then we went somewhere simple for dinner, and it was so good. I just really, really enjoyed that. And for me, before, it was a lot of pressure to plan all the date nights, and I felt like I had to maintain that part of our relationship. And then after walking through that season, I think one of the things I remember voicing to you, and I probably didn't say it well, but I remember saying, like, why can't you plan a date night? Why do I have to be the one that always initiates spending time together? And you were like, well, I don't know about the babysitters. And I said, I can share all the contact information for you with the babysitters, but I wanted to feel chosen. And I remember I think I was in the kitchen and you were in the living room. We were talking about date night and you said, just plan it for whenever. And I said, no, I want you to plan it. And you said, well, it's kind of hard for me to put it all together. And I said, if you can plan fishing with your buddies and you can check the generating schedule and you can pack your truck up and you can call everyone to see if they're going, you can plan a date night. And I'll never forget it because my delivery probably wasn't perfect, but I was very passionate because I was very frustrated that you seemed to be able to coordinate all the details for fishing or hunting or whatever, but you couldn't plan a date night. And you looked at me and you said, you're right. I could do that. And I was like, oh, and my delivery was not perfect, but when you validated that I was right in that one area and you said, okay, I will try to plan a date night.
When I tell Carol she's right, she feels something inside.
I do. It makes me feel all warm and cozy. Oh, whatever. No, I'm not. No, that was a big deal for me that you took the time to plan that. So you called the restaurant. You made sure we had a babysitter. You did that. And that was helpful.
Is me calling babysitters because it's not usually my friends that I can call to babysit. It's Carol's friends, people she knows.
Yes, but
so like, hey,
it was a big deal.
I still feel awkward about that.
I know, but it was a big deal for you to do that or even to ask your parents or whoever. It was a really big deal for me to have you do that. And then we started adding in date nights into our budget. We planned for 1 to 2 date nights a month. Sometimes they're more expensive date nights. They're nicer date nights. Sometimes the boys will go over to David's parents' house and we'll just have a stay-at-home date night and watch a movie. And so it's just different. We do ones that are a little bit cheaper, ones that are more expensive. Sometimes we go see a movie. Sometimes we do an activity and a date. But just to plan and prioritize time together was really, really important. And that's something that came out of that hard season it was almost like an insurance policy. It was intentional time together to make sure that we didn't get back to where we were before. And spiritually, we started connecting more. I started connecting more spiritually with my relationship with God, and I stopped relying on you for that. And I really started developing my own. I had a relationship with God, but it was more shallow, and I started doing that more. And I started diving in deeper and studying more and coming back to, we would talk about things God was doing in our life. But for me, the actual spiritual journey and date nights, planning those, putting them in our budget, that was a few of the things that we did that came out of that season that really have helped us to stay connected in the years that followed that.
So we committed to always work on it. What we don't want to do is ever start the drift, even to begin with. And
Right.
a common illustration, I'm sure you've heard it before. It's that, you don't change your oil because there's a problem. You change your oil to prevent the problem.
Yeah.
And that's why staying on the same page. And every marriage conference says communication is key. And there's a lot of truth to that. But you don't let those barriers go up. Don't start talking in code.
Mm-hmm.
Be honest with each other. Don't go to bed angry. Stay up and fight.
No, no. That was one thing we did change a little bit, because we would be up talking till 1 or 2 in the morning. And sometimes we both had jobs the next day. We had the boys the next day. And so there was a lot of moments where hard conversations would happen, and we would just kind of put a pause in it and say, I love you. I want to hear what you have to say, but we've got to get some sleep. But we always went back to whatever topic we couldn't cover. We would go back later and just commit to going back to that topic.
It's hard because I can't stand it when Carol's mad at me. When I see Carol fuming with smoke coming out of her ears, I'm just like, dear Lord. I start replaying the past several days in my head. What did I say? What did I do? And then I walk an eggshells and say, honey, is it me? And she's like, no. I'm like, yes, it's not me this time. Hey.
That's
and
not
I'm like,
true.
Oh. Like, then I can put a big hug around her and tell her everything's going to be okay, even though I have no idea why she's upset. But if she's mad at me, it's like The Godfather, like good news can wait, bad news we want right away. So,
yes, you are the peacemaking middle child.
yes, I am.
And I am the youngest, who has all of the fire and energy, and I will battle to the death if I need to. But I love the peacemaking middle child that I married. He's pretty great. Valley that we wanted to share was really to encourage you that the Lord can be right with you in that valley, that you're not in that valley alone. And if you don't know who to talk to, reach out. There's a lot of really good counseling agencies that I know about now that I wish I'd known about then. Happy to send you the link to the book. Happy to send you up with Dave and Ann Wilson's online series. They also have a really good podcast called Family Life Today that they are the host of, that we've gained some really good practical parenting advice from. But a lot of people go through this stage. And the one thing I would say is just to know that you're not alone, and that there is grace in that really hard season, and that God has a plan for that.
And I would say that during that time, not our friends, not our family, not even the closest people to us had any clue that we were dealing with this, because we internalized everything. Yeah. And also because of our jobs and our church and everything, we internalized them. Yeah. Now, maybe that's not your situation, but if it is, it might look perfect on the outside, but like your marriage is worth being just a little bit vulnerable. Yeah. And asking for help. And so this isn't really a big how-to session. Maybe if the one thing you realize, my marriage is worth it. It's worth working at. If we want a championship marriage, we have to put championship effort in it. And the resources like the book from Timothy Keller or David and Wilson, they're great. It may not be what you need, but it might get you in the right direction. And I just can promise you, a wonderful marriage is totally worth the effort.
If there's one thing we hope you take away from this episode, it's this: that the drift doesn't mean failure. And it doesn't mean the end. It means that life happened. And what matters the most is recognizing it, naming it, and choose to fight for what matters most before the distance grows any wider. We didn't figure this out on our own. We needed help. We needed some books and some tools and guidance and perspective from people who walked the road before us. I've linked the resources that we talk about in the episode into today's show notes. I hope you can check those out, and I hope you find them helpful. If you're in a season where your marriage feels strained and busy or disconnected, I encourage you to just start there. Don't wait. Don't assume that it will fix itself, because it won't. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone that you know might need it. You never know who is quietly walking through the same drift, just like we were. Next week, we're stepping into the how-to episodes of Season 2. We're starting off by talking about how to write your own mission statement, why it matters, how to have clarity around your values, your direction, and how this can help you stay focused at work, at home, in your relationships, and in your faith. Because when life pulls at you in 100 directions, knowing who you are and what you're building together matters more than ever. I'll see you next week.